Yeah, I didn't have to take math my senior year, which I saw as a triumph, but no, like physics is cool. I didn't have to take physics.
Yeah, I took.
Right. See,
Oh, I took physics.
I didn't even know
I
what
took
physics
physics.
was until after college.
I took I took a conceptual physics class where we got to go to a theme park, which was kind of fun.
You know the one class in high school that I was just like, I'm not even gonna try to understand this. Fuck this. Because all the other ones I would just not do the homework, but like just understand it enough to do the tests or whatever.
Right.
And they would generally be
we're
fine
online.
with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the one I was chemistry. I was just like, fuck this. I don't want to figure out what this means. I'm not going
Chemistry's
to.
pretty fun though.
That's got some the balancing. You do that balancing formulas thing. That's kind of mathy.
It is mathy. I maybe would like it now
Punnett
that I
squares are
smoke
kinda fun.
less weed. At
You
the
guys
time,
think about not talking about nerd shit and instead talking about the book of the
nerd
new
shit.
sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get some real.
That sounds like
nerd
a
shit
paradox.
here.
So we want to back up to the fight in the Bailey.
Yeah.
What page
Yeah.
is
I
that?
think that's just about where we were.
36.
I gave my book away.
Yeah.
Chapter
It's
36.
190 in this copy.
Well, pal.
This is just. These are just some epic chapters here where Severian's facing off against Baldanders. Like, this is when, like, I don't know, it almost hits like a high fantasy note at certain points when
That's true.
it's describing this fight. Like, there's one point, I don't know if it's this chapter or the chapter before where Severian like has this moment where he's like, I realize now that this whole journey has been taken me exactly to this point to
Yeah.
like face off against the giant in the castle.
While he's watching Baldanders fall from the sky.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that
And he's like, oh, this finally the air element, the final element.
Yeah, it's like the Frazetta painting, just like getting made.
exactly. Yeah, it's
Definitely. I think we talked a little bit last time about how this whole like castle thing feels very Moorcocky. Where there's even a Moorcock story where he goes to a castle and there are these like mist creatures and.
Continue. Well,
no, that's about all I've got.
so there's the mist creatures here, and then if we remember back to Claw, there's the fight at the play, and were the Hierodules like using a similar weapon during that? Remember they kind of
Yeah, when they're like
a
conjuring
mist.
dreams or whatever.
Yeah, so this
Oh,
is
yes,
like
the most terrible of all weapons.
Yeah.
this is like some
Right.
device here that just kind of brings up a mist of nightmarish little monsters.
Well, I think they're representations of the creatures that are outside. It's like it's like a hologram or something.
They're Quasters.
We'll say what that is.
Yeah, talk more about
Master Malrubius.
Yeah.
It's a being made from water, I think, like a mist. It's a
Aqua.
3D
A
projection.
hologram
on,
of water.
Yeah.
Watergram.
A watergram.
It's a hologram
Aquagram.
Aquagram.
Yeah.
of a water.
Yes,
And you were saying they're outside? Like, what do you
Yeah,
mean by
yeah. I
that?
think because they're not like really there,
Right.
Like as opposed to I think in the Moorcock story, like they are like the actual enemy is this mist thing. But I think that these are like because he describes one's like a kind of a monster, and then one is of like one of the lake or whatever the shoremen.
Yeah, he's like watching a
Gone.
fight that's happening
Oh,
outside.
gotcha.
being like,
It's
Yeah, and
a
he's
telecast.
Yeah, and Baldander says like one of them is my friend, one of them
Right.
is my enemy.
It's the 3D Jumbotron.
Yeah, exactly. You can just like see what's going on out there.
Okay, so it's not really in this situation. It's not a weapon that Baldanders is using, but that's how he would watch what's going on outside.
It seems like it.
Oh, I love thinking about it as like his security camera.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really funny.
It's okay. Cool. That's a wild-
And then he's
wild
wearing like an anti-gravity belt too for all this, so that he can like move around quickly and
And he
support
has
his
Hawk
weight.
Girl's mace.
Right. So that's like the anti-gravity belt.
and all his little dudes that are
dude,
fighting,
like-
has he turned them loose? Because it says that if he were to roll out there, his little guys would attack him too. Like that.
I'm not sure if he
Right.
turned them loose. I'm not sure.
Or are they just loose and he doesn't go?
Are they just in the chamber where those guys are kept?
Yeah, I think that might be true. I think
And are
that
they
might.
just
I think it
murderous?
might be that the lake people
I think they've
kind of
been
like
tortured and
penetrated
messed
that
with.
part of
Yeah,
it.
so that I mean, so if he went out there, they'd fight. They're just these murderous, crazy little.
Well, they are.
monsters.
They've been totally like mutilated
Right.
Yeah.
Experimented
and
on.
experimented on, so that,
That's
that
crazy.
if you're like, if you are like in that position and you've been kind of like set loose, you're probably just like, get me the fuck out of here.
I think that you've been reduced to animal levels of thought.
Probably.
Yeah, and you see a bunch of dudes coming in the castle with weapons, and those dudes come in and they say, "Oh, those are monsters. We better kill. Those are
Right.
the evil monsters of the guy who runs this castle."
But then Severian recognizes, like, oh, these are the lake people's, like, cousins. I hope.
Right.
yeah, it's very sad what is happening
It
in
is
this
super
battle
sad.
because there's no actual reason for the lake people and the monsters to be fighting each other to the death, and yet that is all that they will do.
Yeah.
Isn't that true in any war?
In where?
In war,
Yeah.
there's no reason why any two people on the ground are like fighting
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it has to do with like other.
They're just part of forces.
Dark
Just
creatures.
trying to get money for college.
That's interesting. In
Oh yeah, that. We talked about that before about how if you do universal healthcare, you have fewer soldiers.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, for sure.
Or I mean, not universal healthcare, but
basically.
free public college.
Yeah,
free public college of less.
yeah, because that's
Yeah,
a
because
big
people. That's like
recruiting point,
it's like one of the main reasons people go into the army
so they can
is
afford
to go to
college.
college. But if you have tuition-free public college,
Yeah.
then less people have to sign up.
Army's
To
going
be
to
in
have
the
to
army.
resort to free pizza.
Yeah, yep, and then they got them.
They still got the free T-shirts and hats thing.
Yeah, right. I just remember the moment that I realized that specific connection. I was just like, "Fuck yeah, I love this idea."
They're doing like they're pushing their cool technology angle real hard. It's like,
Yeah.
you'll get to learn how to use a robot.
You can play video games, but you'll be killing people in real life.
Yep.
I mean, that's
It's like-
been a pitch for a minute too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're going hard. I really like following arms dealers online, like the PR companies for like weapons.
Like Raytheon and
Yeah,
stuff.
and like Lockheed, Northrop Grumman. There's like their social media accounts are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are. They're like beyond comedy. You know, like you can't satirize them. They already are satire.
I wonder who else is reading those social media accounts.
It's weird because there's usually like, especially with like Raytheon or something, you'll get like maybe 20 likes and like 3 or 4 retweets, which is insanely low for for a company with that
A
much
mega
money.
corporation, yeah.
Yeah, but then every once in a while they'll hit something that'll get some traction, but their numbers are not great, and you gotta wonder: is that something they're doing on purpose? Is that something?
Yeah.
Are they like spitballing ideas like very carefully here to try to see what it was that might actually get people to notice?
I feel like
and
in
then
this
avoid those
weird way.
things?
I feel like in this weird way, and I am not on Twitter, obviously, so I can't really talk about this. But I have this feeling that like once you're at a certain point in the public sphere, like where people basically like if you're a company that people know about or a person that like, people know about, you just have to kind of like be on record that you're like saying anything on Twitter or something. Like
Yeah.
people have to just be able to go and reference your Twitter if they need to.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
kind
all
of
the
my
news is
what
like this person tweeted this,
right.
this person tweeted
That's kind
this.
of like how my like weird not social media mind
No, I think
understands that.
I think that's true. Like if you don't, if
You
your
just have to have a presence, and so it
Right.
doesn't really matter. Like
if your company is not tweeting, then like people on the news will be like, "What happened to them?"
Your stock will go down.
Yeah, something's wrong.
you just
Yeah.
have to
Check on them.
You
Give
just
them
have
a
to have
call.
a presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took the Twitter app off my phone. Now my stock's way down.
But we keep seeing this scene over and over again throughout the whole book. We're eventually going to see it at the judgment of the world, and this
the
reading,
Mulder's fight, yeah.
yeah, in this reading, that I've been struck by that more than any other one. I've been getting real excited about seeing this fight over and over and over again.
It's fun that like going
It was,
then
what, like,
into
round 3?
Citadel when we start talking about war like explicitly
Oh,
all the
yeah.
time, having this right before that. This does seem like kind of like in this book this seems like a climactic battle, but then once you start Citadel this seems like a tiny echo.
Yeah.
Like this is one cell of a battle.
Yeah, like a light foreshadowing.
But do you think it's also important that that Severian's sword is broken?
Oh
here?
hell yeah.
It seems like symbolically, I think he's sort of trading in the soldier role, even though he's heading into war, and sort of picking up more of I don't know, something else, more of a leadership role.
Well, that's I mean, because torturers obey, right?
Yeah.
And so now his sword is broken. He can't be a lictor anymore. So he's now moving into this like leadership phase.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It seems like he's growing up or
That-
leveling up.
That's interesting. He has to get rid of the trappings of obedience before he can take his position of authority.
Right.
That's interesting.
Like it seems significant that at the end of this chapter he loses the sword and in a way kind of loses the claw.
Yeah.
Even though he still has the claw.
He
Loses
loses.
on
He is
the new form.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
loses
the new
the claw
form, right, it's
in a way that
transformed.
other people don't recognize. So it's now
Yeah.
it's become a different thing.
Yeah.
And the original thing is not.
It's lost
thing
its
anymore.
artifice too.
Right.
You know, it's lost that like blue like gemness to it, but it's just like the originalness.
The outside part that would make it valuable to a random.
Right. Right. Yeah.
The sword isn't. Yeah, he relies on the sword all the way through these 3 books up to here, more or less, so that he can make money, so that he can scare people, so that he can prove that he's supposed to be somewhere. Like the sword is really like opens.
It's his
every
main tool.
door. Yeah.
He uses it to shave, for butchering animals.
Yeah.
It's his staff for walking.
Exactly.
Like everything.
Exactly.
Well, and
Yeah, and
also like most of the characters you run into, almost every like he's like the only one just carrying a sword around too.
That's true. Most
Like
of the time.
it's you have to imagine it's some kind of
notable.
like it's a multi-use status symbol too.
Sure. Most of the time when people carry something that uses a word that means sword, it seems like it's a beam weapon.
Yeah.
It was a lance.
Yeah, the lance is-
specifically.
Yeah.
Well, and then
Or
Arbalest.
spears
I
too.
think
Spears.
there's a falchion that turns out to be shooting a bolt of something. at
Oh, the
it.
falchion. Okay.
Yeah, I think there was something like that.
There are definitely some like knives, regular knives, but also I think like a large majority of
This
them
is
are.
a sword that's an L high. I don't remember how long an L is, but
Isn't it this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's big. It's a big sword, and it is notably an actual sword.
And like really
It
heavy.
has to, and kind
really
of has to
heavy.
be an actual sword, I guess. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also a cross that he carries around. Mm-hmm. So.
And now the cross is smashed up.
Not really sure what that means.
Yeah, it is also interesting that both the sword and the claw, the gem, like shatter within a few pages of each other. Like, and they're like shattered.
yeah.
Is that? I guess
But
that
that's like pretty specifically.
means
like,
that sort of. It's like those are in both ways. They're sort of the weight of the past. Like both artifacts have like a sort of long-standing aura that he's now he obliterated. So they're
a
not.
pedigree.
Yeah, exactly. So now neither of them are the thing that they were. Neither of them can even be recognized as the symbols that they were. And so that's like a huge sign that he's kind of like, whatever, he's fucking shit up. the tradition's getting overturned.
Yeah.
Anyway, which is pretty Jesus-y.
Yeah.
is Caleb online? Do we have Caleb?
Not yet.
I'm gonna text him.
Yeah,
I just
text
want-
him.
Why doesn't he come to this?
He's a shutter.
There's a comp. Well, I think there's like a. You can't answer questions about Caleb in a simple way. I'll just suffice to
I
say.
can respect that.
There's no
Alright.
Aramini answer. I'm not trying to boil Caleb down.
I
I'm
respect
just
that.
gonna text where you at.
So it's contact with Baldanders that smashes the sword and the casing of the claw.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a moment where Baldander's game goes up a level because it's where he enters the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, what goes on with Baldanders here? He kind of shoots off and then falls into the lake.
Yeah.
But he's just sort of to be continued, right? He's not dead.
No, he's
Yeah.
becoming his next form. I mean, he
Yeah.
was already at the point where he was basically too big
He
for
was
land.
on the kind of the precipice here, and is he finally just heading into it now?
I feel like that's implied.
I think that's implied.
And there's also, I think, an element of sort of plausible deniability. There's this Leviathan in the lake that you see roil over. So there's this sort of I don't know, if it were the end of a TV show season, they would have just teased oh, this guy's dead, but maybe he's not.
Right. Right.
And that's I think that works really well going into the next book.
Yeah, but
Is Baldanders in book
do they
4? I don't
mention
remember.
Baldanders again? Or does he encounter him again?
He does.
Yeah.
In this book? I mean,
Or is it
in the
is it
original
Earth?
tetralogy?
Wait,
Oh, I don't
sorry, what was the
know.
question?
Did Judge Severian encounter Baldanders in book 4?
I don't think I'm
I don't
almost
think
at
so.
the
I
end
think
of book
it's-
4 right now, and I don't.
think he does.
I think
yeah.
it's not
I
till book
think
5.
you have to
yeah.
get to 5.
Okay.
Yeah, but having it's a nice thing that you can have that Gene keeps in his back pocket. just from a plotting perspective.
You haven't read 5?
No, not yet.
It's real good.
I'm going to read it.
I just like to remember who. I feel like there's a few people who have.
I have read it, but I don't recall much of it.
I'm in the same boat. I read it and I was confused by quite a bit of it when I read it.
It's real confusing.
It is really confusing. I'm one thing that has been great about how long it's taking us to get to meetings is I'm almost done with 4 and I'm it's happening, I'm gonna read Earth again.
I can't wait. I can't wait to get through 4 again too. I'm maybe 6-ish chapters into 4 and it's so good.
I'm in a psycho spot right now. Or Severian's about to become the author.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I got super sucked into Citadel also. I just started reading. I was oh man, this is so good.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time in the war part.
Yeah.
That's the part that I'm in right now. I like the war.
I like it, but I just feel like I feel like I have to really. It's not. Yeah.
It hooks me because it describes a battle as a being made up of with
Like a
cells of
living being.
individuals,
Yeah.
and I spend a lot of time thinking about exactly how everything is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's not that I don't like the section or something. I just feel like I struggle when I'm reading it.
Where
It's
do you
not-
feel like the book picks up in the Lazarette?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean the Lazarette part rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part where I was really ooh, and then they start telling stories. I'm all right, I'm here for this.
Yeah.
I'm reading
But the part where
Calvino
he's,
right now, so just these layered stories of just
Which one?
if on a winter's night of
but
travel.
the part where he's actually fighting is after the Lazarette.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Yeah. There's a weird thing that happens in my mind.
Which is
where
the
it's-
part that I'm talking about. When he's
fighting. Not the refugee part.
right.
Because that's something that's interesting about this beginning stretch of book 4 is he's at his weakest point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
He might be physically weaker when he's coming down out of the mountains, but he doesn't really talk about that much. This part is all about how he's reverting to a bestial state, practically. He talks about losing courage at one point with the dead soldier, Miles.
or Jonas.
Oh, I think in this group we were talking about the problem of Jonas's personality appearing in the dead soldier. And this time I noticed that he actually stuck the thorn into the guy's forehead. This is also the first miracle worked after the shattering of the claw.
You're ahead of us. Let's.
What? This is in this. This was in the part that we were supposed to read.
I know, but we haven't officially put
Okay, all right.
sword away.
He wants
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
We haven't put the sword away.
Yeah, we need to put it away.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you
So
think?
we're starting. We were talking about 36, and I wrote down this thing that I liked where he says, "Fighting, I found it's on 192."
Oh, I have a note here too.
Yeah, I found though it is exciting in the sense that it takes one out of oneself. It's difficult to describe.
I love that so much. What a good writing gambit.
I also just note every time he like admits that he doesn't remember stuff because he does it all the time.
Yeah.
And this is one.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, mind is too full to really remember.
He does that at the beginning of Citadel too, where he's just like, like.
I feel like he.
I know-
I remember
that-
everything. They're in there. It's in there. I can't always get it.
Yeah.
that to me is
I note it
humongous.
every time just for.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get
Posterity
that's
or
chapter
whatever.
3 of Citadel, and that I feel like is a huge turning point. Like when he tells us that. But anyway, we're still here where it's that fighting takes one out of oneself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean his description of fighting is just so good. Like, he doesn't just resort to like blow by blow, but kind of describes like the power play between he and Baldanders and all the different factors going on and how strategic it is, which is just great. Like, he's just talking about how he's advancing a step and Baldanders sort of like steps back, but they're both kind of parrying with one another here. They're both aware of what threats one another poses to one another. Baldanders is aware of what this sword can do.
There's the language is really like economical too. Like it's not like when he's writing the fights, it's not this kind of like. It's not tedious. It moves. It moves very quickly and covers a lot of ground very quickly, and that is great. I don't always see that.
I mean, it's just so lived in. Like, it just feels so genuine. Like, the darkness and the rain, this is the next paragraph there, favored the style of wild combat forced on me by the design of Terminus Est. Not only formal fencing, but any sword or spear play that resembles it requires a good light, since each antagonist must see each other's weapons. Here there was hardly no light at all. It's just...
I mean, that's just his way of saying, like, I am just, like, battering anything that's in front of me with this, like, there's no finesse. He's just flailing around in the dark with his fucking sword.
Yeah, and he says that. He's none of these encounters was satisfactory in the sense that a well-performed execution is.
What a weird roundabout way to saying I failed.
Yeah.
I also like to spend a lot. I'm like really. I guess one thing that's making me more kind of sympathetic to Severian lately when I've been reading this is that I also think of him as Thecla at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about like experiences like this that he has where he's obviously kind of, it's like you're learning through experience, like you're learning what fighting is and like how, but it's two people learning it and they're probably learning different things.
Yeah.
I just think that's cool. I think like, I can like Severian more when I think about the fact that he's also Thecla, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I like Thecla a lot more.
I feel like we're starting to see a lot more
She's-
Thecla in him, too.
Well, they're starting
Right.
to separate. I feel
Right.
like before, it would be hard to tell when he's talking about Severian and Thecla, and now, like, Thecla just sometimes comes out and says, "Hey, this is Thecla now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
mean, that Autark
being a
flyer
fancy
moment
little
is
girl.
that Autark flyer moment is so sick. Or like before they get in the flyer and the Autark's like, Thecla, you need to go away now. Like, I need to talk to this other guy, okay?
Yeah, and it's also interesting that that other people, this is skipping ahead a little bit, will recognize him as Thecla too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that whole idea is so fascinating that it comes
That happens
out.
in the house.
He is-
Absolutely, that's happened already.
Yeah, right. It's happened in the house, and then in the camp later on. Someone
Right.
recognizes him as Thecla.
And then she's starting to, like, take part in his dreams, or, like, they're having these dreams that are, where it sort of shifts between the two of them.
Well, people who never even knew Thecla will recognize Thecla. Like, there's...
Oh yeah, it'd
Right,
be
the
like,
the boy in the jackal or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
like a
will be
woman.
I thought there was a shining woman here.
Right. Yeah. Or the kid says that too, right? That's what you were just saying.
I think
the
so.
kid in the
Yeah.
back. Yeah. so it just adds another dimension too to the Alzabo gland, that it not only puts that person's mind inside of yours, but also captures an essence of that being, and that kind of like oozes out of you as well, and it sort of, you turn into that person. You're not just, it's not just like you downloaded their thoughts like Matrix style or something, and now you're like, now I have their thoughts.
Yeah, it's not like you're accessing something. It's like you are access.
You have their guts.
You've become,
Well, I mean, I
the
think
guts.
it's
Yeah.
like when the like amount to which you know someone and the way in which you know someone changes like how they physically look to you.
Yeah. But it implies here that people are seeing Thekla, the woman.
Yeah.
Like,
It's because Severian is acting.
Severian's acting,
Right?
Like Thekla.
No, he's acting. He's like, it's the same thing as acting is. The character inhabits your form.
Yeah.
You are recognizably a different person.
Yeah.
Like, I think of it as acting. If you're good.
Yeah. And so you think he's kind of channeling Thekla intentionally a little bit?
Well, not necessarily intentionally, but I think that like what's going on with him would be he's having involuntarily.
It's not necessarily conscious.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Interesting. Oh.
Involuntarily acting is a cool. I like it.
Yeah. We probably involuntarily act a lot throughout our lives.
Oh yeah,
Certainly.
Yeah.
there's a part in the beginning of book 4, a Thekla monologue, where she's able to actually tap into Severian's memories of Severian eating her.
Oh yeah.
The whole thing is so tripped the fuck out.
Yeah.
37. Terminus S. So this begins. There's pictures in the Brown Book of angels swooping down upon Earth in just that posture. Does anyone have a?
It's like that Led Zeppelin logo.
Wait, say that.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
There are pictures in the Brown Book of angels swooping down upon Earth in just that posture. The head thrown back, the body inclined so that the face and the upper part of the chest are at the same level.
That's the like Dore, like Lucifer falling to Earth kind of thing.
It's also exactly like that famous fossil of the Archaeopteryx, where we find out that dinosaurs have feathers. Like when the bird-based dinosaurs die, they go into that position.
Huh.
I feel like it's like a Renaissance style of painting, right? Like the 2D angel with its head kind of like.
Oh.
I can't think of a specific work.
Here, like
Maybe not even Renaissance, like medieval. Actually, is probably more what I'm thinking of.
I was wondering if it wasn't William Blake.
Probably.
I mean, like, I think that anyone who's illustrated Paradise Lost has like done something similar to that. Like I don't know. That's a really common depiction of Lucifer falling. So you see it in Dora, you see it in Blake. For sure. You also see. I think has kinships to depictions of Icarus. Which I think is what the Led Zeppelin logo is, probably Icarus. I don't actually know. I mean, that would make sense if they're Led Zeppelin.
I think it's supposed to be a zephyr.
Sure.
They think they use the word zephyr to describe it. I don't hold Led Zeppelin to using the word zephyr absolutely.
I don't think that they were really like.
No. We don't.
They didn't have it ironed out. It's
of
called
the
the Icarus logo,
Oh, okay.
I guess. So
That's a cool way to. This is a really cool way to start this chapter. So like.
Well, it's a really cool ending of the last chapter too. Like,
Yeah, he's falling
like
slowly.
He's
It's like
falling
the
on
closest I can
slowly.
think of it, where it's
Yeah.
like. I feel like I've seen ones where they're actually facing more downward, but I feel like what he's describing is like the kind of like.
I feel like
head,
this.
like-
So the Zeppelin thing is actually a Rimmer piece.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a take on that.
Yeah, I think the Led Zeppelin logo is just a tracing, like a shitty tracing.
We'll add in all of these classic pictures in post.
Will we?
But this is also because he mentions in the brown book seeing in the very big book seeing the picture of being the flies between space in this, right? Doesn't he say
Yes.
like I saw a picture in
Yes.
there? So like again, this is taking this battle and connecting it to the battle in book 5 where the whole Earth is judged by Dead Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I think is why that image is important in this chapter right now, and the only reason that it's important.
The only reason.
So this is where they actually fight. This.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Terminus S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
just love those
It's
comments.
3-page chapter.
Yeah. It's
here's
good.
the paragraph I was talking about earlier. It's just like I love how Frazetta-ish it is. Like Mark was saying, like I whirled then with my cloak, wind whipped behind me, and my me and my sword, as I had often so held it, lifted for the stroke. And I knew then what I had never troubled to think upon before, why my destiny had sent me wandering half across the continent, facing dangers from fire in the depths of earth, from water and now air, armed with this weapon, so huge, so heavy that fighting any ordinary man with it, like cutting lilies with an axe.
Yeah, fucking airbrush that on an Astro Man.
So sad.
The salamander's the only creature from fire that he's had to fight, right? What fire has he had to? Where's the fire?
That was the big
Salamander was very fiery.
Yep,
It was
pretty
very
fiery.
The salamander was fire. You need more fire.
Yeah, I want.
A little bit more.
He's looking for a different kind of fire.
What in the fuck?
Well, I just feel like there's been a lot of earth, and the water's a real big thing. It's just hard.
You say it's imbalanced.
Yeah. There's not enough fire.
Well, what's the Earth? The Alzebo?
I mean, there's
And
plenty.
the creatures in
Nacho.
mine insult us.
Oh yeah, those
Yeah,
guys.
there's also, and then the water stuff, of course, is fucking Abaya.
Fucking a body.
Oh, the nachos must be air too, right?
Is that what he's describing when he says that? Or no?
I think they're water.
Yeah.
Oh, they are.
Nachos?
Because they do come from the sailor, huh?
Well, and
Fluid.
they're from space,
kinda
and
think it was like
space is
antimatter.
talked about like the ocean.
Like a sea,
Right.
yeah.
Oh,
That makes sense.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of fires happen. There are a lot of fires in the
In the
book.
world.
That only makes sense that space is water and not air. Because space is like all about darkness.
And there's no air at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tiamat's the goddess of space.
Yeah.
And also the ocean, the unexplored ocean.
Tight.
Tight.
I do like this part where he says, "As I leaped away from the mace for perhaps the 100th time, something struck my heel and I nearly fell." So he's like, so this is when I tripped, but I had been doing really well before that. Like hundreds of times, I did this perfectly, and it was only this last time that I had a problem.
And then they
Yeah.
describe a scene from Errol Flynn movie.
Yeah.
Where?
This is when he's fighting up the stairs and
Yeah.
he's like, now I have a little bit of advantage over this gigantic man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
That's
Errol
great.
Flynn. I watched The Aviator recently, and Errol Flynn's in that.
Although Flynn, he uses more of like a fencing kind of.
Yeah.
But just fighting going up
Yeah.
the staircase.
It's
such a
very swashbuckling
1940s
Yeah.
deal,
adventure.
Yeah, but
It's
but
very swashbuckling.
Severian's sword isn't a sword that you use like this. It's a
No.
sword that you.
Yeah. I mean, he's just struggling this whole time. He was really trying to smooth it over.
That's an interesting take on it, and I think
I think so. I think
you're
that's
right.
like
Yeah.
I feel like almost any time Severian is like really tooting his own horn about some kind of combat thing, it's because he's really trying to cover up like
Yeah.
how embarrassing it is that because he's not trained for this stuff. Like
No,
No, not at all.
he's trained to
But
do
this
this,
is another reason
and
I was
that's
thinking
it.
about Thekla is like I would think that
Oh.
someone like a Thekla would actually have more
Right, maybe some-
relevant training
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
at least
this
more like
type of
sport
situation
fencing
or
or dance.
something,
dance.
A little
or
bit of
like
Arya stuff.
martial
Yeah.
arts or something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you would imagine actually that like because she had like theology teachers and stuff. Like they're probably doing
She probably gym class.
PE teacher. She at least had a fucking PE
Yeah.
teacher. Totally. That's why I was thinking about her.
Yeah, maybe
too.
she's
It's
lending
like I
him
think
some
there's like
finesse.
I think there's like he's probably, I think in a lot of situations, like earlier in the books, the only reason he was like making his way through the world at all is that Dorcas is way smarter than him, and she was just like, please just do this instead. And now he has a woman living inside of his mind who's probably just like, let's go read. You know,
which is still a fucked up way to think about women. I feel like a dehumanizing.
well, it doesn't really actually matter that
she.
she.
Like
it doesn't actually matter that she's a woman necessarily. I mean, I think
it does.
I mean,
I think Severian, it does have to kind of like turn a lot of female figures into mommy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he never really had a mother figure. I mean, he's got like these sort of like ideas of a mother figure, and then that gets projected onto every woman that he's with. And it's all like weird and sexual also.
I mean, I think Severian has a fucked up relationship to women.
But part of what's going on there,
Like, I'm never gonna argue against that.
part of what's going on there isn't women are inherently mommy. Part of it is also that you can see an other across that gulf that like you can't see in a person that you identify with more strongly on the surface. Mm-hmm. You know, like you're able to see more in a person who is the other than you are in someone who you're like, oh, they're like me. Mm-hmm. And so that I feel like with Severian, that's part of what's going on with him, like turning Thecla or Dorcas or whoever it is into these like more idealized figures. It's because he doesn't immediately identify them, he can give them qualities that he doesn't identify with himself.
It's also that literally every character in the books is smarter than Severian. Yeah. It's not just the women. I mean, Jonas, Baldanders, the Autarch is constantly like, everything he says, the Autarch is just like, God. Like the Autarch laughs at Severian a lot in that section that I just finished.
Yeah.
He's constantly, every time Severian says something, he's just like,
I kind of think that maybe Abdias is awesome. Right? That's the Autarch name?
Abdias?
Yeah. No. He was like, he was the guy that he was working for as Lictor.
What's the
I can't remember.
Aphrodisias? Who is it? Well, anyways.
Abdias, I think, was the guy he was working for in Thrax. The Archon of Thrax. Mm-hmm.
It's just lovely.
Anyway. But my point is that, like, Thecla is one of many characters, pretty much everyone, who knows more about what's going on than Severian does, and she just is the one that's also living inside of his mind. So I just assume that, like, he's greatly helped by the presence of Thecla in his mind, because he's a fucking dumbass.
Maybe that's why he gets so attached to Miles, because he's like the first person who feels like Severian knows more of what's going on.
Right, maybe, yeah.
And that's just because he's like hasn't put any memories back together.
Right. Or like the child.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Little Severian.
Yeah, he's like he gets attached to these things of like, oh, like I have some kind of prowess in this situation.
Right.
That I don't have to project, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's every other time he has prowess, he's just like kind of like he's acting.
I agree though. I like the Autarch.
Yeah, I think the Autarch's fucking awesome.
His name is.
And I think it must be very frustrating for him to like be like, oh, this is the thing that's gonna win where I failed.
Well, it's interesting too because he's like, I was a like servant or whatever. He's like, everyone hates me because I was a servant,
right?
And they're gonna hate you even more because of what you.
But then they also like the whole key of it is that like no matter how much people hate him, they also love him enough to fight for him.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Which is fucking amazing and beautiful. Yeah, the whole point is that Severian is detestable and you still care about him. Do we?
That's necessary for hope.
Yeah.
The most detestable one of us has to have hope for any of us to have
no
hope.
redemption without sin.
I think that's worth maybe pausing on. Like, do we care about Severian?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious. Like, I
do.
You know, now that you've verbalized it that way. I mean, I guess I'm rooting for him as I read, but I think that might be just because he's the protagonist, but I don't know. And it brings me back to the review the like really clueless review that I shared like in the email, you know, where the person was just like, this book's so wandering, it's crazy. But the one point that they had that I thought was interesting was they were like, the narrator is so bland. Like, it's the blandest narrator. And I kind of like thought about that. I was like, I guess Severian is kind of bland.
He's just
like, he has thoughts. He's like, he kind of has the thoughts of like an old man in a chair, you know, kind of like relating all this stuff. But like, what are Severian's character traits though? Like, what is it that excites you about Severian? Like, I'm just genuinely curious here. You know, like, I love the world of this book and the construction of it and like imagining it all, and I find Severian interesting.
I get a kick out of how oblivious he is.
Yeah, I think.
I guess that's. I mean, that's got to be.
There's something of the picaresque in like the way that a lot of this the book works, and a lot of how like Severian's kind of like very slowly kind of figuring things out.
Yeah,
and I think that there are definitely,
as are we.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely other books, especially like in the picaresque tradition, where like the main character is kind of a rube, or just like fundamentally wrong about a lot of stuff, and then they're maybe not even necessarily learning, but we see that world because they're going through it. We see the things that they're not necessarily picking up on.
Maybe Severian is our little Severian.
Kind
He's
of.
the only one who knows less than we do.
Yeah, and I mean, but like you see that in like Don Quixote or like Confederacy of Dunces, like he's
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump, sure.
Like Barry Lyndon,
Yeah.
like Thackeray-ish,
The
kind of
Sotwee factor.
comedic.
Yeah, like you don't necessarily for that kind of story structure, you don't necessarily need someone who is really smart, gets what's going on, and grows as a person.
Yeah.
Because that's not because of the way that, you know, maybe they're kind of like slowly moving from one place to another, but really it's about these kinds of like little episodes that happen, these like steps in that larger journey. And a lot of the times it's like about stuff that doesn't necessarily concern the focal character.
Yeah.
It's like
He's the only one who knows less than we do.
Yeah, exactly. He's candy.
He's the little Severian. He's our little Severian.
Yeah.
It's nice. I feel like
Thinking about that makes me like him more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you're so dumb. Okay. All right. let's get you through this, buddy.
And we read it as innocence, even though we know that he's not.
Right. Yeah, that's a little bit sinister.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know more than him, but we also know less than him in some ways, just because we don't know. We know, or we take for granted a lot of what he describes, or you know what I mean, like in the way that we don't exactly know what he's saying. We don't exactly know what he knows when he's saying it.
Well,
So it's difficult to glean his meaning sometimes.
When he's writing it, he is Legion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's everybody.
But just in the way where, you know, in the last appendix where I think Gene Wolfe's final point is like, I'm pretty sure that that Severian doesn't distinguish between space and the ocean, you know, but that, for example, like we as readers don't exactly know what Severian is seeing. So we are ignorant in a way, in the fact that we literally don't see what he's seeing as readers.
Isn't there an element too that like everyone is Severian-y? Because everyone
Severian-y?
Yeah,
Severian-y.
Like because it, like
Necessary adjective.
especially considering that he's writing this from the point of being Legion. Like it isn't like Severian is exceptionally like stupid. You know, he has his own point of view and he judges everything based on experiences that have happened to him and stories he's been told and like people that have had an effect on him, and that like that's still, it's not like once he becomes Legion he's like, oh, look at what an idiot I was and now I know things. I feel like the reaction is like, wow, it's very clear that Severian has his own perspective and is kind of blinded by it, but it's also happening with everyone else too.
Yeah.
It's just very like he's just kind of guileless in a way that it's very like obvious.
And as an autobiography, it's not particularly self-critical. You know.
I mean, I think that Severian is doing it in an extreme way in that Severian's autistic. You know, like I think his point of view is more protected in his own mind because of his autism.
Yes.
It does seem a little spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he seems very spectrum.
And I think, well, like, what's the difference between that and somebody who's like more? I mean, isn't it kind of like interpersonal social skills that makes the difference? Not really like how true your vision is, but how you're able to diplomatically kind of navigate other people's visions.
Well, and how your brain is able to communicate with itself, too. Like different parts of your brain talking to each other. So like, you can't take the "I'm seeing that happen" and then translate it into "I know what that is" part of your brain. So there's a disconnect between what you think is happening and what's happening at all times in autism. And I just really feel like that's what's going on with Severian, and it's why I'm interested in the story. And this isn't the right book, you know, is like being able to piece out what's happening through Severian's perception of it. Like that is what's interesting about him.
Yeah.
I really think.
He's a.
Didn't this guy just come out with a new book?
I think so.
Like a chapter by chapter breakdown of the cycle?
Really?
I thought he came out with. He came out with a dictionary for short and long son. I know.
Maybe look at. I think someone just wrote a chapter by chapter sort of reading guide. I think it might be him.
Interesting.
Might be. I think Aramini also just recently.
Well,
Yeah, but I'm not thinking of. Yeah, I know that Aramini I think has a book forthcoming, or maybe it's out.
So he lost a claw, and then this last chapter is what, like 4 pages of him being sad about losing the claw.
And then
Oh, whoa! Caleb is texting the shit out of me. Hang on.
Oh wait, he's here.
Hi, Caleb. Hi, Caleb.
So the last chapter of Sword is called The Claw. The only part that I really wrote down about this was 100 times I wondered if someone else had not found the gem while I slept under the pine, which I cursed myself for doing. 100 times also I reminded myself how much better it would be for it to be found by anyone than for it to be lost forever. Which is why he gets to find it, right? He can't find it again till he comes to that place.
How certain are we that what he finds had anything to do with the claw?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because I doubt it.
Interesting.
Yeah, you think he just found
He
a
just
thing.
finds a claw.
Yeah,
I mean,
his spirit star power just finds something and made it glow with the power of a star, and he's like, finally, I can stop looking for this.
He at least found some shards of it, or at least what he thinks are.
But the
actual
shining
thing.
thorn at the very end, I kind of think that is Ka soul was just like, okay, we got to move on. There it is. Let's go.
Good enough.
I like that idea.
Very possible.
That would make sense.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, he produced the claw from out of his body anyhow, so
Right.
why not just do it now so that we can move along?
Well,
There's a
I
4th
wanna
book to
know-
get to.
I want to know who made the claw into the gem. At what point did that happen?
I
And
have
who did that?
questions. Yeah.
Pellery?
And why? Just
think it'd have to be
just to
pretty-
show
Is it just like a?
Fossilization.
Or I was thinking
Natural
maybe it's like it's a
fossilization.
protective case.
And it's not
Well, it
that.
is.
it's
That's
not
what
that
I thought of it
effective.
as. It's like
It's like, yeah, we gotta.
yeah, it's like a
we
resin
gotta take care of
thing
this.
or something.
I figured it was a weird thing that someone found, like a naturally produced thing, and they're like, "This is so weird. It must be a relic of immense power." It was a
Seems
freakish object that someone like decided to venerate.
It's
I
also-
wonder if it ever
But-
shone before it came to Severian.
Yeah, there's not really any. We don't get a whole lot of information about.
We don't.
How the
It seems
Conciliate
intentional,
or,
you know.
yeah, interacted with it.
Compare Gene Wolfe's, you know, treatment of the claw to, you know, Tolkien's treatment of the One Ring. You know, there you get so much exposition, so much like religious detail, so much proof of how it works, and so much. In here, this is maybe comparable magic item And it's just like, it's so, we just don't even know. We don't even
I wonder
trust
if it was.
We've spent a lot of time arguing about what it does.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if it was
Still
an object
unclear.
of legend before they, like the Holy Grail, where it was like there's this sort of like object that we are trying to find. We're told that it exists, and then somebody does find it, and then it becomes this like worshipped artifact.
See, I feel
Or
like it's
if it
more
was,
like pieces of the Holy Cross, where it's like people say we have this thing and we know we can follow its provenance all the way back to the crucifix.
Right.
But there's also there's more than one cross.
Yeah.
Worth of splinters out there.
I really like this idea of thinking of comparing the claw with the one ring.
Well, just in terms of the way
I feel like
Gene
there's a lot
Wolfe
there.
treats it,
Yeah.
like
It's-
fantasy
yeah,
books
it sort of follows him
often
in the
have
way
like a
that the
magical
ring
item
does
at their
follow.
center, and
Yeah.
this has a magical item in it. I wouldn't say it's at the center of the story though. Like,
Well, it is the whole thing that gets him moving. Like
yeah.
he's only here because he decided he had to go give it back.
true,
And that's the whole point of Lord of the Rings.
yes.
Yeah. But there's like the difference is so interesting because in like the one ring is so externalized. It was made by a specific person who had a specific power. They made
Yeah.
it at the instruction of a specific Dark Lord, and he used it in this one year of this
Yeah.
one battle to control these people's minds.
There's a really specific story behind
Yeah. Mhm. And
where it comes from.
And then, like, when you put it on, it makes you evil. Like, Gollum is not like Gollum's true form.
Right.
Gollum is a degraded form of Smeagol, or whatever his name is. So it's like the ring brings a bad thing about that's not necessarily, like, inevitable in a person. And then
I feel like the implication in that is that if you live too long, you become evil. In Lord of the Rings.
Because it imparted
Immortality.
some form of, I don't know,
Longevity.
prolonged his life.
Well, when Bilbo's describing using the ring and how like on his 111th birthday he described himself as like butter spread over too much toast and stuff, and like that's when he starts behaving evil and doing selfish things,
Right.
like running away from home. And when I think that the evil nature of the ring is just because it keeps you alive. So everyone should die.
it makes you disappear. So it kind of like makes you maximum alone. Like it's like so individualist.
Well, that's
that, like,
what
when
the-
you put it on, no one can like permeate your individuality. They can't affect you anymore.
And then the ring wraiths are created by the rings also, right? That basically happened to them. They just kind of like lived
Stuck
until
around.
they became these like wraith monsters.
And
Like the Mets in Altered Carbon.
Sure.
and so did you say mechs?
Meths, the Methuselahs, the people who are able to afford to keep themselves alive, so they just live in these giant skyscrapers and are inhuman.
Cool. It's also so Frodo has to, in order to like solve the problem of the ring, he has to go where it was made and cast it in so that it's destroyed for real.
Yeah.
And like all of this shit is really the exact opposite. All of it is so historical and so individualist and so like externalized that like all the power resides in a thing that is outside of people, and the way to destroy it resides in a specific place that you know.
And that's what Severian thinks, that he needs to get this thing back to these people, but that's not the point at all.
Yeah.
But it is a motivating factor for him. Like
Yeah.
it drives him forward.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's not even the point
And
of
It's
what
kind of
he's doing.
And it seems so inconsequential to everyone else in the world too. Like even when he goes back to the Pelorines, they're not even a little bit intrigued by his story. You
Yeah,
know,
they're like, no,
whatever.
you're probably
But you
wrong.
would think if they would have, that story would have circulated within the Pelorines. Like one day, this thing crashed into our tent, and we lost the. But they don't even. It doesn't even seem like they're sweating it at any point.
Unless there's like 50 claws out there.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, we don't. Yeah, exactly.
Every
yeah.
group of Pelorines has a claw.
has a special claw. Like no one cares, you know. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Ballanders
also-
doesn't care.
This looking at the claw this way, in this moment, seems to be paralleling the idea of the secret of the tortures being that they obey and having to get rid of that in order to become the autarch. Like the claw is, as you say, this thing that is other than oneself, that has this crazy power, and like it's this very externalized thing, and you have to smash it before you can realize that the power was you the whole time, and that you're not obedient to a force outside of yourself, that you have to be responsible for your own creative forces.
Yeah. Which he still does not seem to have grasped at this point.
No, and that's why he's going to starve and has to sleep with that dead man.
That's right.
He's not responsible for himself.
Little Severian.
And I do kind of feel like there's a little function of this, him having to say it would be better for anyone to find it than for it to be lost, is like a shift in his relationship to the claw that allows him to move on, even though he himself does not like consciously move on. I feel like it is something like when you're talking about like his castle being like, all right, we're going. I feel like that's what it's kind of waiting for. That what gives it the opportunity. Yeah. His higher self gives, gets an in there. To be like,
he's still got some inertia.
Yeah, it's like when you admit like that it's not your possession of this object that is important. Like then we can get you a little bit further down the road.
Well, and this touches on an interesting thing that maybe we should know. Like, do any of us think that we've been saying that his motivating factor in this book is getting the claw back to the Pellerines? Does anybody think that he is in any way actually trying to do that?
He has doubts about it for sure.
Well, I think that he is telling us that he's taking it to the Pellerines, and really at night he's taking it out and thinking how awesome he is because it's his.
But he's walking north.
And he does give it back to them. I mean,
he tries.
He tries, but he also has like doubts. Like he's in the camp for a few days, like debating whether or not he should tell anyone.
Well, and that also occurs after this moment. Prior to this moment, I don't think that he had any intention of giving it to anyone ever. Or
right. Well, he like realized that he probably shouldn't have it. It's like he just realized that like, oh man,
like the
I managed to hold on to it for this
travels.
long, but.
Like, so do you think he's just picked a random direction to walk in and he's justifying it after the fact?
I think he's going away.
I think once he
like
leaves
when you
Thrax,
start
Like,
in
that's his-
Buenos
that's-
Aires,
that's his-
where else are you going to walk?
That's his motivating factor that keeps him going in a certain direction, but he has to go in a direction, so he might as well do
It's
that.
the only
like that
direction.
kind, like
It's
yeah.
interesting.
I think once he kind of he has these like different motivations that all kind of at the beginning of the books he has like, okay, so he serves what's his face, Woodsman, I'm totally blanking. Vodalis. Sorry, yeah, he serves Vodalis. He fully serves the Torturers Guild. He like is sort of trying to chase after these various women. He's like has the theater troupe. Like he has all these different things that are kind of like inching him forward, and he sort of feels some amount of obligation to all of them. And then at this point, like those layers of obligation have all kind of like been shed one by one. So again, he gets to the.
Well, he also systematically breaks promises.
Yeah, exactly. Like he gets to a certain endpoint with it, and then like kind of severs that. He goes with another one. So like he encounters Vodalis. He starts doing that. He moves forward because of that. But that's never. They're all kind of like reasons for him to be moving, but they're not like his reason.
Yeah.
For moving.
Yeah. I think that's another.
He just
example.
needs a life purpose.
Yeah.
He's been like.
Well, I think Wolfe is again just subverting like notions of like quest fantasy and just kind of destabilizing the idea of a journey and a quest. And we're really unclear, as readers, what Severian's intention is with the claw, what his true feelings about it are, how motivated he is to move on this journey.
Yeah.
And really, he's on this big journey. One of the complaints people have about this book is that they don't even know what it's about or what he's doing. And frankly, Severian may not. He might just be wandering the earth.
Well, I feel like maybe there's a discrepancy here. I don't think that Severian is moving forward towards something.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a goal-based person. Like, I think he talks like that, but I think that
He does
Severian
a
is
little
moving away from things. Severian runs
Yeah.
away from the Gilded Nessus.
Runs away
from Vodalus, runs away from the House Absolute, runs away from the Wizards. You know,
Runs away from
And then he needs
always
to.
running
Then
away.
he needs to have a justification, an external like.
And north is kind of just the direction he runs.
But yeah, he's just getting out of here.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
I think.
And that I feel like Wolfe is mocking the quest. Say like this is what really moves human beings, and then to stand in the like later on and go back and say and I was at every step here I was on the hero's journey.
Yeah.
You know,
but the hero's journey is just something a narrative you apply.
But
to
and
whatever
also
happened.
every
It's not a
time,
real
like there's
thing.
one right here. Like, every time he's like, and this is my new vow. Right after he says that, he just immediately reminds you about how he always breaks every vow.
Yeah.
Like right when he takes the vow, like this thing right here, he's like, if I did not find the claw, if I didn't find the claw, just before sunrise, I vowed to take my own life if I did not find it before the dark came again.
Right.
Whether or not I could have kept that vow, I cannot say. Like immediately. And then if I had broken that vow,
I
it would
love
not
life.
have been the
Put in a
first.
page for
I've loved life so long as I can remember.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like,
and this is
probably wouldn't have done it.
That's why I'm good at my job.
Yeah.
If I had
This is
broken that
vows.
vow, it would not have been the first.
I do really like this little section where he says, as a fact, the claw was thus an incommensurable, no quantity of money, no piling up of archipelagos or empires could approach it in value any more than the indefinite multiplication of horizontal distance could be made to equal vertical distance. That's really cool.
Yeah, I read that like 5 times last night.
It's so good.
Trying to like really get into that headspace.
And then if it was, as I believed, a thing from outside the universe, then its light, which I had seen shine faintly so often and a few times brightly, was in some sense the only light we had. If it were destroyed, we were left fumbling in the dark.
Yeah.
That's like a really good paragraph.
It's great, and it's so revelatory that Severian has these thoughts about it. I'm like, talk more about this, dude. Like, that it's from another universe.
Well, I think
Expand
this is.
on that,
I
dude.
think this is. I mean, this is, to me, this is obviously a Legion Severian talking. I mean,
Yeah, right.
even though he puts it in the past tense, as I believe, if it was as I believed, a thing from the outside the universe.
Also, just replace it with the word soul. And I feel like it becomes this awesome notion.
Replace what?
Replace the
with
claw
soul?
with that
Yeah.
it's Severian's soul.
Yeah.
Then I think that a lot of his character development becomes clear here.
There's a lot in this idea that the light comes from outside of the universe, and if there's nothing outside of the universe, then we're in the dark. I like that a lot. Like,
Yeah.
if there's nothing beyond the grasp of our understanding, then we have this dark, fatal, silent universe of our own contemporary outer space. You know, that goes infinitely every direction, and it's pointless to even start moving because, you know, even if you were to find something else out there, it would be unrecognizable, you know, and it would and if you were able to find it by the time you got back here to tell anyone, they would all be dead, and so would their great grandchildren.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's the universe that I think of when he's talking in this sentence about something being from outside of the universe. Like, there has to be something more.
I've been encountering this weird notion in physics. I don't know if I'm understanding it correctly. That when physics people are talking about our universe, they're talking about the observable universe. Like anything that we can see, but stuff that exists far enough away that its light will never reach us doesn't count as part of our universe. It's part of a different universe bubble. And it's really offending me these days. I've been getting so upset about it. Because it's like there's like physical existence is infinite, but the universe isn't actually infinite. It only goes for as far as we can see it. But then beyond that, that's just another it's just this horrible way of thinking of things, I think. But I'm thinking about it because you're talking about from outside our universe. And how I'm having
Of all things that could possibly exist
In this universe.
or at all.
well, that's the multiverse.
Okay.
This is like, there's one contiguous physical dimension that's happening here. But because of our ability to perceive it, there's a horizon that it goes over.
Right.
And we call everything beyond that horizon not the universe. But if we were to move, that would change what the universe is.
But not literally move.
Yeah, literally move.
Right.
Well,
Like you're saying you take an issue with the fact that they are saying the universe is everything that is observable. Right?
I don't.
And if we were to go to the edge of that, then that would also be the universe because we could see.
Well, it's just, so like, the universe is just us here at this space point time,
Right.
and then
And the radius around that's
That we-
everything that it is conceivable that this point would be, or that's moving, of course, but that would be able to observe. But the stuff that's beyond this horizon, that's only created because of our position, like if this position was at a different point in space-time, like...
Well, that would be the universe.
Right,
Still.
but it's all one thing.
I think that the idea. See if I can wrap my head around this in a way that makes any sense at all. I think that if you're thinking about the idea of like the universe being only what is observable, then that's not necessarily bound by a physical position so much as a perceptive position.
Well, the speed of light, the speed of light is what's used to figure this out.
Okay. Well, so like they're just not.
Like
how's
if
the
light,
speed of light used?
if something's far enough away that the light would never be able to reach Earth,
Right.
then it doesn't exist. So in our universe,
Oh.
that's another universe.
I mean, it's sort of functionally, it doesn't exist in our universe.
Right.
But I think that's like a.
Which I mean, talking to a physics person, yes, of course, it makes sense how you don't think that that's part of our universe. But as not a physics person, it hurts me.
Well, I think, yeah, I don't know. I think that the at least the standpoint of saying like, I think that you can go two directions with it. You can say we can't observe it, like, so it doesn't exist within this universe, therefore it does not exist. Mm-hmm. Or I think there are those who would say more like it is possible that or you know whatever, it's philosophically possible that there are things that exist outside of our knowledge. However, because we can't experience them or access them,
Right.
then they functionally don't exist.
Right.
And so, and then there are people who go like they do exist and we can't access them, so maybe they functionally don't exist, but I still care about it.
And I think our inability to physically observe something, meaning that it I take issues with that as a concept. The idea that it functionally doesn't exist if you can't ever like. I'm definitely with Connor on this because like
I think that's a very that's maybe like an enlightened materialist viewpoint where you can be there's sort of an agnostic.
It's a semantic problem.
I think that is
like a
semantic.
functional
But
term
it hurts me
for a universe for scientists. You know, like because universe
science is goofy as hell.
Well,
it is.
science is
we can all agree about that.
Yeah,
the
science
work
is
of
goofy.
understanding
It's real
observable phenomena.
Right,
So
exactly.
yeah, so like if it's not within the purview of observable phenomena, then science doesn't.
And the
pertain to
purview
it.
of observable phenomena is changing all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's
And
it's
science-
a living.
A good
Science
scientist
is
admits that.
It's a
goofy
living
as hell.
field.
And we have
Yes.
immense disrespect for the purview that was like not that long ago. Like two
Definitely.
before us now is so stupid.
I know.
Like,
At every point in human history, we're like, we finally figured it out.
Here it
No,
is.
You didn't.
I just watched
no more leeches for us. We know stuff now.
I just
Yeah.
watched a QI where they were making fun of people in the Dark Ages for thinking that the world was flat, and then had to deal with the fact that it was their misperception that people thought that was wrong. Like, nobody ever thought that.
Yeah, there's
That is a
But
lie.
also I was just in a hotel room recently for work.
Nice.
And I just like I flipped the TV on because I'll usually watch like 30 minutes of TV
Forensic Files.
because it's just like tripped out.
Yeah.
I'll just watch like 2
I just
minutes
wanna watch the
of
commercials.
each channel. I'll just
Commercials
watch 2
are a
minutes of
trip.
each channel or whatever. But I watched I watched like 5 minutes of this thing about Chichen Itza.
Oh,
But
cool.
like, but you know,
Oh,
so
on, like,
at
the
the
History Channel or
solstice, you know, it's like set up. It's like a classic thing where
And a big
like,
pile of rocks.
yeah, exactly. But it's like it lines up at the equinox, and the sun hits the thing in a certain way where the shadow makes it look like the dragon god is like coming down, and the dragon god brings the rainy season, which is like allows things to grow and like blah 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 blah, and like it just seems to me that like that's kind of better science. Like, okay, and now we grow things. You know what I mean?
Back when
It's
science was an art.
yeah, it just seems like better in every way. You're like, oh, I respect the natural cycle, and like, it's just shit like
Yeah, I don't
works
think-
better. When you
Things
do
aren't better when
science
you're
that
just
way.
boiling it down to its like material facticity. Like the
No.
story
Like,
of the
Facts
thing.
versus
we
truths.
Can grow
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
The story of the thing
We
is
can
the
grow
thing
this
that's
in a
useful
greenhouse.
for people. It's not, and like if we're making the story of the thing just like these sort of component, like physical parts of it, then that's you're only getting part of that story.
And this is why
like reading the
Baldanders
Cliff
is the
Notes.
villain. It's like Baldanders represents the science. He's the
Yeah,
one that's
exactly.
cutting
Yeah,
people
yeah,
up,
for sure.
experimenting
Yeah.
on them, trying to put them
Totally.
together. Also, he can live
Empire
longer
is
and be
just
more.
going to grow forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's-
Well, and he's a
Baldanders
symptom of
is
the-
the patriarch.
And it's all
Yeah,
about
and he's a
himself,
symptom
too.
of the thing that it like he's like Typhon. I mean, he is also Typhon.
He's
like
literally self-absorbed.
Typhon
All of his
put the
emotions
black
are like-
hole in the sun.
Exactly.
Like that technology, this type of like quest for technology is literally
Yeah.
like killing.
Yeah.
When we were
planet.
They're
talking
just
about
grinding
Baldander's
things up.
experiments on the lake people, I was like, oh, he must be just retracing Typhon's steps to get that.
They're
his head on
definitely like
Yeah.
heavily correlated.
I'm on team
Oh,
minus
oh.
5. I'm gonna go in a couple minutes.
Oh well, then let me spoil Long Sun for you before you go.
Great.
So like yeah, Baldanders has to go throw himself in the ocean, the literal ocean,
Yeah.
and Typhon throws himself into
Into the
space,
space
the
ocean.
figurative ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to spend more time with
Yeah.
Typhon.
Well,
Really?
you will.
And the
You've read Long Sun.
I like Long Sun better than
Yeah,
Have you
we
read
love
Short
Long
Sun?
yeah.
I
Short
still
Sun's
haven't
okay.
read
I mean,
Short Sun. Oh man, Short Sun's the best.
Yeah.
It's my favorite one. That's the one that's just raw emotion.
I really
on
need to
Annie's
start.
grade.
I really
I can't
need
wait
to
to
start
argue with
ripping
everyone
more
that
of
those
these
ones
songs
aren't
that
as
they
good as
did.
this one, but we'll see.
Wait, what?
I can't wait to be the guy who's going to argue that New Sun is the best. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm pretty sure. I, know,
I don't
I'm
feel
really
the
not-
need. I don't
I'm
feel
gonna-
the need
I bet
to
I'm gonna-
differentiate.
Yeah.
They are
I
one
don't
thing.
either.
It's all kind of
I don't
weird.
either, honestly.
I just feel like there's
I'm
a
not into
maturation
tribalism.
that goes on in Gene Wolfe from New Sun to Long Sun to Short Sun.
Right. His writing style, you mean, and
Uh,
approach to things.
I think he learns to be humble
Yeah. As a writer.
as a
Are
man.
you talking about Gene Wolfe?
I am.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Baldanders is like the psychological term for what he is Titanism. It's like
Oh yeah.
it's the idea of the person growing, like your ego growing to like such enormous dimensions.
Do you guys? Sorry. Do you guys think we're down to 4 people now?
This should be.
Like,
I
do
mean,
you
we
guys
are-
think
stop
we
and
should
then
just
start.
like talk 5 minutes more about the end of this book and just have a short one this time? I feel
Yeah.
bad having
Start
a
with Citadel next
4-person
time.
Yeah, if we're down 3
Okay.
people,
I just
maybe-
feel bad about doing it.
If we're starting the next book, I think we
makes
should
sense.
probably have everybody.
All right.
That's fine.
I
Yeah,
just
this-
feel bad
this has been
about
a
it.
good
I think
shorty.
I don't know.
There's a lot to talk about in the first couple chapters of Citadel.
Wait, so what I'm saying is, let's see if there's anything else we want to talk about in the next 5 minutes of the last like 2 pages of this chapter or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm down for meeting more sooner than now. But just let me know what you come up with. I think Sundays are pretty good for me moving forward.
Let's meet next Sunday.
I'd meet next
I
Sunday.
can't do
maybe
next
we can
Sunday
get
because you're going
together
away.
and-
2 weeks.
I
Maybe
can't.
2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. My weekends are kind of fucked this month, but we'll email about it.
Whenever works. All right. Bye,
Oh,
Wolf.
hey, Caleb's in there. Family Feud. They play the episode back to back in hotels.
Oh.
Frankenstein character. Aramini likes Short Son the best too.
Who says that?
Caleb's such
That's
a troll.
fine.
He trolling.
I'm also not into tribalism, and I don't have to hate Short Son just because Aramini likes it.
True.
And I'm also not into tribalism. I think tribalism.
I mean, Ermini ostensibly likes all of these books.
Yeah, and he's right. They're all good.
Yeah.
Wait,
These
what's wrong
and
with
Free
your
Will Free.
weekends this month?
You still want to play Shadowrun, though?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
out of town for 2 in a row at the 27th and the 3rd. So
Next Sunday I can't, and then I'll be out of town the next one. Then I could probably do the one after. I could do the.
I'm gonna be
27th.
gone for that one and the next one.
All right.
Can
yeah.
we stream
So
a
you'll be
Google
able to-
Hangout?
Could we do it this coming Saturday instead of Sunday?
Yeah, because what I could do
12th.
is put a window in the software. I think we could totally do
And then we
that.
can project it. This is just a thought for the future.
I mean, I would not be able to even do a hangout. It's my physical location is less of an issue.
Yeah, I'm not. This isn't solving this problem. This is me playing GI Joe.
What?
In GI Joe, they never used a phone.
Oh, it's
they
always
just had
video.
a giant computer screen, and you talk to a giant version of the face of whoever you were talking with. Cobra Commander, you can't be hello,
Wait,
Cobra
what about
Commander. It
this
has to be a
coming
giant
Saturday?
picture of him.
I have to work during the day at least. I can do Friday.
Quit your job.
Yeah, well, we're getting.
Oh
there.
yeah, I have something on
Monetize
for-
your dreams.
I have something on for next Sunday as well.
I'm actually off on Friday, but probably Tim's working.
Yeah, I could do it on Friday during the day. But
Oh,
But
I
I
might
think
be.
Tim,
I
has,
think-
a day job.
I
talk
so
about
does
11?
Jordan does too.
I mean, I do too, but I'm just not working on Friday.
We're offline.
No, we're on.
No.
Friday evening, like that's bad.
I could maybe do Friday evening. If we're gonna do evenings, like during the week, is probably better for me generally.
Then Friday.
But yeah,
I mean, I
You
can't.
see,
I can't commit to any of those days except Friday because
Right.
my
Yeah.
work schedule is
See,
like.
I like when we do early in the morning, but I could also see a Friday night being better than like a weeknight. You know, if we were all just
there's
like
a show
letting-
here
letting
on
loose.
Friday night
Are you guys working?
Oh yeah, Tommy
to be
show.
responsible for. So.
Tommy, can you hear me, Tommy?
Well, could it
Were you
be
friends with
like
Tommy
at
growing up?
5 on
Tommy
Fridays?
who?
Before,
Rouse.
but it.
Oh, I mean, I
it wouldn't
met
have to be late on
later
like showtime.
in
on
life.
Friday.
That's true. Maybe
It'd be like
do it earlier.
6.
Wait, you wanna meet here on Friday at 6 and then have Tommy Rouse have a show?
Oh, sorry, I don't know. It's an idea. I'm just trying to troubleshoot.
I don't like that idea. I'm sorry. I vote no.
Mark just threw all of the next bunch of Sunday
Yeah,
whole
our,
weekends
our,
out
yeah,
of
our
the
Sundays
window.
for the next month are kind of fucked. But
I know it's also bothering my Shadowrun campaign.
What about a Saturday night? Oh wait, that's a weekend.
I can do Saturday nights after the 15th.
Right.
October 15th is such a weird day to close the bar.
She just picked the middle of the month. You know, I don't
Right.
think she thought about that.
A Tuesday.
Right. I think that, which means it'll actually be like Sunday will be the last day, right? I don't think.
Well, I work on Monday, so I would love to get that extra $40 on the 14th.
Yeah, I can hear that.
So I vote the bar is open on the 14th, even if nobody comes.
it's gonna be hard to get that $40 if nobody comes.
As long as Joy comes.
The other thing the way that could go could be like, oh well, okay, so that's a Tuesday, so it's actually really closing on the 19th. You know, like.
Yeah, we'll see what happens at the end of the day.
Yeah, Jesus. I guess we'll find out next week.
Wait, when are we gonna have the next meeting?
We don't know.
Are we just like?
I think that we should figure this out in email
we
because,
haven't talked
as
to
you pointed
everybody
out,
else.
there's only 4 people here.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard for us to make any decisions on behalf of everyone else.
Yeah, I think that we gotta.
But it's gonna be really hard to have that conversation in an email. Like, could,
Not if
maybe
we
could-
started out by saying, let's stay on topic.
do it
No,
in
no,
no
no,
joke
no.
styles.
My suggestion is we don't have to stream this, but why don't we just turn the stream off?
Bye.
Bye.
Got it. It's private time now.